Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Penda. If you are tuned in today, then based off the title, I know why you're here and you know why I'm here. So we're going to skip the long introductions. I'm just going to ask you to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. Just as a disclaimer, because I'm going to keep it real with you guys, I do make a mistake as I'm using the product, but you guys will see that as you continue to watch. I hope that you enjoy the video. Alright guys, so I'm coming to you with my base already done. I did use the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter foundation. I personally mix the shades 470 and 480 because I feel like it gives me my perfect shade. 480 is a little too dark and then 470 is a little too light, so I just mixed them together. If you are on the hunt for the Fenty foundation, I would definitely say that it dries down to be very matte. And something that you just want to be aware of is that it does oxidize a lot, but I feel like that's something we all know from all of the reviews that we've seen. So just keep that in mind when you are buying the foundation. Now for these concealers, I thought it was going to be a one done. I left my house at 9. I know Sephora opens at 9, so I was going to be like, yes, I'm going to be the first one in here. I'm going to grab the concealers I want and I'm going to go. It did not work that way. I had to go to 4 different Sephoras in order to get all of the shades that I wanted. One of the stores didn't have the darkest shade in $4.98, and there's something that I found in a lot of the Sephoras is that they would have the testers, but then they wouldn't actually have the product for you to buy it. So I would definitely say be careful, and if you are going to get the concealers this weekend or next week, try and see which concealer shade you think you might be, and then call ahead to see if they have it in store, just because that will help you with saving time. I'm going to insert a video and a picture here and here, and you guys are going to see the last 8 shades of this concealer line. So that starts from $4.45 all the way down to $4.98. The one shade you will not see in that lineup is going to be $4.50 because the store that I was at when I took that picture and video did not have it. But I'm going to do a live swatch of $4.50 for you today because I do have 5 of the concealers and most of these are in the deeper shade range. So let's just go ahead and start off with the swatches first. I bought all of the concealers for different reasons and I'll explain to you guys as I go through each one. So as far as the one for the Fenty Beauty concealer, pretty much looks the same as the original Fenty Beauty Pro Filter foundation. It's just literally in a smaller mini version. And I feel like we've seen enough pictures of these from all of these swatches and all of the images and videos that have already gone up online. One thing that I do want to make note of is that the wine is really nice. It's super flat. So that when you're applying the concealer, even as I was swatching it, it goes on pretty even. And then one thing that I will say is that a lot of product comes out once you take it out of the container. So a little bit of this seems like it might go a long way, but I'm not too sure. But definitely if you are someone that doesn't like to highlight or you don't like to apply too much concealer, if you are using this container, you definitely want to kind of scrape some of the excess product off before you apply it onto your eye. And then the shades in order from right to left are going to be $4.45, $4.50, $4.60, $4.70, and then $4.98. So $4.98 for sure is going to be a good contour shade for me. So if you are someone of a deeper complexion and you need to see if this is going to help you with contouring, it definitely will. This shade does run a bit red, but I don't necessarily mind that because the powder that I use to set my contour is very cool tone, so I feel like it will balance it out. And then $4.70 was the shade that is recommended to me to start with, just because that is the same shade that I use in the foundation. And I would definitely say that the way that they match the concealers to the foundation is great. However, if you like to have a super brightened effect when it comes to your under eye area, the one that matches your foundation is not going to give you that super brightened look. However, it will for sure highlight underneath your eyes as like a subtle highlight. It's about 1 to 2 shades lighter than your actual foundation shade based on how they compared it. So it is a great place to start. That is not a lie when they say that. $4.60 when I was looking at it in store, and even now, this one, it does look a bit orange. However, I do feel like because these 2 shades are more yellow tone and more olive, a lot of the times when concealers have too much of a yellow undertone or too much of an olive undertone, they do leave me looking a bit gray. So I feel like this shade is going to be great as either a corrector or to mix in with concealers like these or concealers that I have in my collection that are a little too yellow or a little too olive tone that I could still make use out of. So this for me is more so going to be like a corrective concealer shade. So as far as the last 2 shades, I would definitely say that they pretty much look the same right now. When I was in Sephora, they look different when I swatched it, but you know the Sephora lights sometimes, and also probably how hype I was just made me feel like I needed both of them, and I did get them in separate stores, so that could go into a factor as well. $4.45 was described as having a warm or olive undertone, but to me, as I'm looking at it, it kind of looks cool tone. Both of these look a bit cool tone to me. They don't really seem like they have that much of like a red or a warm undertone, and I'm very warm. So I feel like between the two, I would most likely use 450, just because 450 has a bit more pigment and it looks like it has a bit more of a red or a warm undertone, whereas this for me is reading more neutral. I feel like the best shades that I picked up, definitely 498 for the contour, and I feel like 470 is going to do a great job. If I want to brighten it, I feel like I'm going to go in with 450 instead of with 445. But I'm going to go ahead and start with the actual demo. I don't know why I feel a little nervous. I'm like nervous but excited at the same time. So I am going to start off again with 470. And typically whenever I highlight, I just do underneath my eyes. The bridge of my nose. Something I want you guys to notice as well is how much kind of goes on just from one dip into the container. So like I said, a little bit really does go a long way. I'm going to go back into it and just apply more on this area here. And then I'm going to bring it in a little bit more here. So as far as this shade right now, I would definitely say this is a good highlight shade for me. It does read a little red to me, but I feel like once I apply the 450 on top, it's kind of going to balance it out a little bit. So I'm just going to take 450 now, and I'm going to apply that right over, which I feel like is going to... yeah. When you put them right over each other, it looks like it's the same shade, but like I'll show you guys. 450 is definitely more golden. These two mixed together are going to give me a great outcome. So I'm just going to go in, I'm going to start blending. It does spread pretty easily. So I did go ahead and blend it out, and it blends it pretty well. As you guys saw, when it came to this area over here, I just went in with the bottom of the Beauty Blender and just pounced it in more so that there wouldn't be that much of a harsh line. But when I go ahead and contour, I'm going to blend it up as well. So it'll all pretty much be seamless together once I'm done. If you have creasing underneath your eyes, so I have creases. I know that this claims to be a creaseless concealer, but if you were born with creases and you have creases, it's gonna creases. Like, there's just no way to avoid that. So I hope that you don't go and buy this like, oh, I have creases, but this is gonna get rid of them. It won't. It's still gonna be there, but the product itself did really beautiful. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take the 498 concealer, and I'm going to use this in order to contour. And again, a lot comes out, as you guys can see. Yeah, 498 is very red. It's very red, but it's darker than me, so it is going to give me that contour effect, but I definitely want to use a cool tone powder when I set it, so just be aware of that, because the point of contouring is supposed to be to add shadow or depth to your face. So when it's a little too red, it kind of negates that purpose, but we're still going to use it. So as far as 498 to contour, I feel like it added more warmth to my face than it did contour. It acted more almost like a bronzer to me, but I'm not sure if that's just how it's coming off on the camera. But as I'm looking at it, it kind of looks more like something that just added warmth, but I'm not mad. Like, I'm okay with that because I don't have any bronzers really that I can use to add warmth to my face. And actually in their Match Stick in Espresso, I actually use that as more of a bronzer shade just because it is very red, even though it's a little darker. So I feel like this as a contour, it's not giving me shadows. if that makes sense. I don't know. Let me know in the comment section down below if you agree or disagree with me. I feel like this might be a shade that I have to play around with more. But now I'm going to go ahead and set my under eyes. I am going to be using the shade Hazelnut. So I'm just going to use my beauty blender. It's already damp. Dang, I forgot to blend in my under eyes a little bit.
Oh, hell no!
All right, I think I may have made a mistake. So just from what y'all just saw, I would say go in with a lighter hand. I'm used to just packing on and I'm still doing it. I'm used to packing on powders, but I feel like there's a lot of pigment in these. And when I say pigment, I mean like whatever the shade is that it shows up in the top, once you press into it with your beauty blender and put it on your face, it comes up very strong. So less is more. What I'm gonna do is, instead of letting that sit for a little bit, I'm just gonna dust it away immediately. So I was wrong, and I will admit that. Fenty was right. I'm actually about to go in now with nutmeg because I feel like hazelnut was a bit too light, but I also feel like I went in with too much of a heavy hand. And I kind of still went in with too much of a heavy hand on this because the products, I don't know if it's because my beauty blender is wet or if it's because of the powder itself, but it picks up very easily. So I'm going to go back over wherever I put hazelnut, and I'm now going to apply nutmeg, which is that, dang, even when I try to apply a little bit, a lot is coming on. Okay, so I just pressed it in, and now I'm going to dust off the powder. Okay, so I think I fixed it. Yeah, I think I fixed it. What I had to end up doing is I had to apply more nutmeg on my face. As you guys saw, I pressed it into my skin and then I kind of blended it off, but I feel like a little bit of that hazelnut was still left on my face. I definitely regret applying that hazelnut and thinking that I knew better than Fenty. Like, who do I think I am, number one? But I think I fixed it. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to apply some setting spray. And I did kind of go ham with the setting spray just because that's really going to help the powders to melt, especially since I made a mistake. So I feel like I should be good now. I am going to go ahead and finish the rest of my face off camera. And then Alright, so I feel so much better now because before I even finished my face, I had to go in the bathroom and take a picture with the lights off just to see if I was looking crazy, to see if it was looking patchy, because with all of these lights and a different setup, I feel like sometimes the way it appears on camera or the way it appears when I'm looking in the mirror is a little different to how it's going to actually look on me in real life or in flash. And I'll put the picture up right here, but it looks good, okay? I look nice, even. I still look chocolatey. I still have my deep complexion, and I don't have any flashbacks. So even though I made the mistake with the setting powder, I fixed it. We're good. We're good. Now let me go finish, and then I'll come back with my final thoughts. Alright guys, I am back with my finished face, and I've actually been sitting in this makeup for about 3 or 4 hours now because I really wanted to let it sit in and just see what my final thoughts would be on this concealer and this powder for today. I will link down below in the description box everything else that I use on my face because this is for the most part a Fenty face. The first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is going to be the powders, because that is what I had a little bit of difficulty with. I feel like there are 4 major things that you need to know when it comes to your first time applying this powder, as well as 4 things that you can keep in mind before you purchase it. So the first thing is going to be that if you are sensitive to smells or if you have sensitive skin, you should be okay, but this powder does have a scent. I myself have sensitive skin and I do have sensitivity to smell, but I didn't smell it that much until I was trying to shake the powder out of the container and onto the cap. At one point a lot came out. In this container it does look like the holes are small, and you would think that you need to like shake a lot in order for it to come out, but no, the powders come out, they flow through smoothly, and because I kind of hit it hard against the cap, a lot of the powder flew up into the air, and that was the first time when I was using the powders that I really noticed the scent. So if you're being careful with the way that you're applying it, you shouldn't have that issue at all. It's not strong enough to the point where when you're just applying it underneath your under eye, you smell it so much. Unless you have extreme sensitivity to smell and extremely sensitive skin, you might want to be more cautious when it comes to using the powder. Overall, I don't think the scent is that much of a big deal for me, but I do think it's something to note. The second thing is going to be that with these powders, a little bit goes a long way. Yesterday, I actually watched Jackie's video when she did a review of the powders, and she actually dipped into the powder, dipped onto her hand, and then went underneath her eye. I don't know why I didn't just follow that, knowing that, like, Jackie never steers me wrong, because I feel like I went in with such a heavy hand of the powders, and I think that that may have affected the way that hazelnut looked on me, but that'll be the third thing that I talk about. So I would definitely say make sure that you are cautious with the technique that you use when applying the powder. Tap it off onto your hand, and when you think you've tapped off all the excess, tap even more, because that powder, I don't know why, it's probably the most pigmented powder I've ever used, and it comes on so strong. So you really do want to just make sure you focus and use a little bit at a time and build it up if you want more of that baking effect. The third thing is going to be shades, which you guys saw me struggle with. I really thought it was downhill. I thought I ruined my whole Fenty face. I was like, throw the whole review away, throw the whole channel away. Like, I was so stressed out when I put that powder on underneath my eye in hazelnut. But the more I think about it and I actually watch some of the clips back, I feel like hazelnut could have worked if I went in with a lighter hand, because hazelnut looks a lot like Sacha Buttercup setting powder that I have that does work for me as well. So I feel like the technique really messed it up. But in general, because there are 8 shades in this setting powder, it's extensive, which means that you might have options. So you might want to play around with them a little bit. I would say try to get a sample at Sephora if they give samples of this powder, just so that you can see what your correct shade would be. So just be very careful when it comes to matching the shades. A good start point would be what Fenty suggests, because I feel like they suggested nutmeg, and nutmeg ended up working well for me. So listen to Fenty. I feel like that's the moral of this story. Now, as far as the actual performance of the powder, since I put it on, and like I said, it's been about 3 hours now, I have not needed to powder at all. So I feel like the powder really does help to lock in your makeup. The second thing is that the texture of this powder is very similar to the Too Faced Born This Way setting powder, and that it has a very velvety touch, and if you rub it in between your fingers, it literally feels super smooth. And that means that when you're applying it onto your eyes, it does have a little bit of a blurring effect. As I told you guys, I do have creasing underneath my eyes, and I feel like the powder did a great job of filling in those lines so that my skin could appear more poreless, even though I'm having a really bad breakout right now. So overall, I really did like that about the powder. Another thing that I want to say about the powder is that it blends out really nicely. Even when I went in with too much of the powder and when I had to put on another layer of a different color, I feel like it blended off my eye really smoothly. And a lot of times when it comes to setting powders, one of the things that I'm most scared of is putting it on my face and it literally not going anywhere, which is why I typically try not to bake too much, just because I have had those horror experiences. But I feel like with this powder, it's safe to bake, and it blends off, or it wipes off very nicely. Now let's go ahead and talk about the concealers. So the first thing with the concealer that I will say is that you definitely have options. Like 50 shades in concealers, and I'm talking about they have different undertones. Some of them, the change in them are so slight, like with 445 and 450, that you're really gonna be looking at it like, what's the difference? Like, I thought I came home with the same concealer. Like, looking at it, I'm just like, why did I buy both of them instead of just getting one? I know why, because of the lighting, but still, the shades look so good and so like similar to each other that I really recommend that you go into Sephora, or you go into Sephora at JCPenney to actually swatch it on your arms yourself, so that you can see what shade you want to buy. But if you don't have that opportunity and you don't have that ability to physically go look at it in stores, definitely start with where Fenty suggests that you kind of start from, based on your foundation, because I feel like it is a good pairing. Starting with 470, I think really laid the foundation for where else I would go in the concealer range. The formula of the concealer itself is super pigmented. I know that it says creaseless, but again, if you have creases, it's gonna crease, period. There's no way you can get away from that. It does spread out pretty nicely, and it blends really nicely. So overall, I highly recommend the concealers. I feel like they are more creamy than the foundation itself. However, both of them, when they set, they set. Like, when I was working with the concealer, I feel like I let it sit on for a little bit, or a little longer than normal. And especially because my skin is a little dry right now, I feel like I should have just went in immediately and started blending it away. It didn't negatively impact the look, but I feel like there was a little bit of tackiness to it as I was blending it out. So in the future, I would definitely move a little quicker with that. The only thing I will say about the concealer is that for the shade 498, I watched back the clips, and even though I thought it kind of melted down a little bit and it got a little darker, I feel like it wasn't until I applied my setting powder for my contour that was actually a cool tone that my face did look like it had a shadow to it. I feel like $4.98 for me is definitely more so like a liquid bronzer that I can use to apply more warmth or to bring warmth to my face. So if you are looking to contour with $4.98, definitely see how it looks on your skin tone. But I will say that for me, it is a very, 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 very red shade. So just make sure that you are aware of that before you purchase it. Overall though, I highly recommend the concealers and the powders because the formula of both are amazing. Just make sure you keep in mind some of the learning curves that I had to go through and the mistakes y'all saw with the powder as I was filming. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Comment down below and let me know if you purchased any of the Fenty products or if you will be purchasing any of them. Also, let me know what were you thinking when you saw me apply all of that hazelnut. Did you want to unsubscribe and just dislike the video right then and there? Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. As always, I love you guys so much and I can't wait to see you next time.